When was the last time you heard nothing? Not music, not chatter, not even your own thoughts racing from one anxiety to the next. Just silence. Most people don't realize how loud life has become. Notifications, breaking news, social media, emails, podcasts. Even when we're alone, the noise follows us in our pockets, in our minds, in our bodies. We're drowning in information, but starved of clarity. The modern world celebrates those who speak up, react fast, stay plugged in. But what if the greatest power lies not in saying more, but in stepping back? What if silence, real, deliberate silence, is not weakness, but the ultimate strength? The Stoics believed it was. In today's culture, silence is often misunderstood. It's seen as awkward, passive, even suspicious. If you're not speaking, you must be hiding something. If you're not responding, you must be weak. But the truth is far more subtle and far more dangerous. We live in an age of constant stimulation. According to research from the University of California, San Diego, the average person processes the equivalent of 34 gigabytes of information per day. That's more than 5 times the data our brains evolved to handle. No wonder we're burned out. We're over-informed, emotionally flooded, and mentally fractured. And yet, we rarely give ourselves permission to pause, let alone be silent. The result? A chronic inner noise, a restlessness that never quite goes away. We scroll because we can't sit still. We reply instantly because we're afraid of seeming unengaged. We talk to fill the silence, not because we have something meaningful to say. This endless input has a cost. It clouds our thinking. It drains our energy. It makes it nearly impossible to hear what actually matters, the quiet truths beneath the surface. But the Stoics saw this coming. Long before smartphones or media overload, they warned about the dangers of external distraction. Seneca wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again, retreat, not into nature, but into himself, into that inner fortress of silence that no storm could shake. Today, more than ever, we need that same retreat. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." For the Stoics, silence was not an absence, it was a presence. A powerful, watchful presence that allowed the mind to breathe and the spirit to realign with truth. Silence was a discipline, a form of strength, and above all, a filter. Epictetus taught that we must not react to everything that happens around us, that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose. Silence is that space. It is the container in which reason can rise above emotion, clarity can emerge from confusion, and character can speak louder than impulse. Seneca warned against verbosity. Speech, he said, should be weighed, not counted. And when a man speaks less, it does not mean he is inferior. It often means he is thinking deeper. To practice Stoic silence is not to shut the world out. It is to stop letting the world dictate your mind. It is to pause before responding, before judging, before being swept away, and to ask, what part of this is within my control? What truly deserves my energy? Silence, then, is not emptiness. It is attention. It is intention. It is stillness in a world that demands motion. And it is that stillness that restores us. So how do we reclaim it? How do we practice Stoic silence not just as a concept, but as a way of living? Let's begin. So how do we begin? How do we create moments of silence not just in our environment, but in our minds? How do we use silence not as a luxury, but as a tool to reset, to observe, to reclaim control? What follows is not a meditation routine, not a productivity hack. This is a return to something far older, a practice carved by the Stoics, tested by time, and ready for those who are willing to meet the noise of life with the power of stillness. Silence as a daily reset. Each day, carve out a moment, just 10 minutes, and give yourself permission to hear nothing. No music, no podcasts, no scrolling. Just you, your breath, your presence. That's it. This is your Stoic reset. Not a break from life, but a return to it. Choose a time that's yours. Early morning before the world wakes up, or late evening when the noise dies down. Sit or lie down. No agenda, no outcome. The only goal is to observe the breath rising, the chest falling, the thoughts drifting like clouds. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. You'll itch to grab your phone. Your brain will remind you of all the things you should be doing. But stay, because in that silence, the mind begins to detox, the inner static fades, and you start to see what was buried underneath fears you've ignored, emotions you've repressed, ideas you didn't know you had. You don't need incense. You don't need a mantra. You just need courage to be still, to be honest, and to let the silence do its work. This reset is not a task. It's a gift. One the modern world won't give you unless you claim it. Ask yourself, during this silence, what am I carrying that I no longer need? What would I see if I stopped trying to distract myself from seeing? Let silence answer for you. 2. Tactical silence. Now imagine this. Someone insults you, publicly, or a loved one says something that cuts deep, or you're confronted with injustice, anger, or sheer stupidity. What do? Most people lash out, speak without thinking, text back, post, argue, prove a point. But the Stoic response is different. The Stoic pauses. This is tactical silence, the art of not responding immediately, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to observe your emotion before it owns you. Here's the practice. When triggered, stop. Take one deep breath, then another. Feel your body, your fists, your jaw, your heart rate. Notice it. Don't deny it. But don't let it command you either. You have 5 seconds. 5 seconds where you say nothing, where you let the storm inside settle just long enough for reason to return. In that gap, you reclaim your agency. You move from being a reactor to a responder. Maybe you speak after those 5 seconds. Maybe you don't. Maybe the moment passes and silence says more than any comeback ever could. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters." Tactical silence is your way of making that response deliberate, calm, and rooted in strength. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I choosing? If I speak now, will I be proud of these words tomorrow? IV. Silence with nature. Dibor trong im lang. There's a reason the Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to modern followers, sought out nature, not just for beauty, but for balance. Nature speaks in silence. Take a walk. No music, no calls, no podcasts. Just you, your footsteps, and the wind. It could be 5 minutes around the block, or 30 minutes through trees and grass. What matters is the absence of artificial noise and the presence of natural rhythm. As you walk, let your senses awaken. Feel the weight of your body on the ground. Hear the birds, the rustling, the silence between sounds. This kind of silence reconnects you to something older than stress, older than the internet, older than anxiety. It reminds you, you are not the center of the universe, and that's a relief. You are small, but not insignificant. You are temporary, but not meaningless. Let the silence of nature uncoil what modern life winds too tight. Ask yourself, am I reacting or am I choosing? If I speak now, will I be proud of these words tomorrow? 4. Silence with nature. Dibor trong im lang. There's a reason the Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to modern followers, sought out nature, not just for beauty, but for balance. Nature speaks in silence. Take a walk, no music, no calls, no podcasts, just you, your footsteps, and the wind. It could be 5 minutes around the block, or 30 minutes through trees and grass. What matters is the absence of artificial noise and the presence of natural rhythm. As you walk, let your senses awaken. Feel the weight of your body on the ground. Hear the birds, the rustling, the silence between sounds. This kind of silence reconnects you to something older than stress, older than the internet, older than anxiety. It reminds you, you are not the center of the universe, and that's a relief. You are small, but not insignificant. You are temporary, but not meaningless. Let the silence of nature uncoil what modern life winds too tight. Ask yourself, what is nature doing that I've forgotten how to do? What happens when I stop outrunning my thoughts? You might be surprised what answers emerge. In the quiet. In 2018, author Ryan Holiday, known for reviving Stoic philosophy in the modern age, did something that puzzled many of his peers. At the height of his career, with multiple bestsellers under his belt, he disappeared. No interviews, no press, no podcasts, no phones. He retreated to his ranch in the Texas countryside, surrounded by trees and animals and silence. But he didn't go to escape the world. He went to listen more deeply to it. He brought with him no agenda, only notebooks, and a single question. What is my life truly about when the noise fades? In that silence, he found clarity. He described moments where he would sit on the porch for hours, hearing nothing but wind and birds and the shifting of trees. And in that space, ideas emerged. Not forced, not chased. They simply surfaced from stillness. He wrote, "Stillness is the key, not during a burst of manic inspiration, but during a prolonged period of deep silence." That book went on to change the lives of millions. But more importantly, it changed his own. He later said that silence was not a pause between projects. It was the foundation of everything good that came after. It reminded him to write slowly, to parent intentionally, to live deliberately. And perhaps most powerful of all, it reminded him that nothing good comes from noise, only from meaning. And meaning speaks in whispers, never shouts. You don't need a ranch to find that silence. You just need to want it badly enough to turn down the volume of your world and listen again. Silence is not the absence of life. It is where life begins again. In a culture obsessed with expression, reaction, and constant motion, choosing silence is a radical act. It's an act of strength, of self-ownership, of return. The Stoics knew this. They practiced it daily, not to retreat from the world, but to engage it with clarity, with calm, with quiet conviction. So tonight, before you reach for your phone, your playlist, your Netflix queue, try something else. 10 minutes, no input, no stimulation, just breath, stillness, presence. You might hear your heartbeat. You might hear your own thoughts. You might hear nothing. But in that nothing, something ancient will begin to stir, a sense of peace, of presence, of knowing. Let that silence guide you home. And if this message resonates, if you feel the call to reclaim your calm and practice silence like the Stoics, drop the word stillness in the comments. Share this with someone who needs peace more than productivity. And subscribe to Path of Stillness, where every video is a return to what truly matters. We'll see you in the quiet.